You can speak a philosophy, or you can bleed one. One is performance. The other is transformation. You see, we've built an entire world on words. Social feeds echo with motivational noise. Virtue quoted like it's currency. But what happens when the storm comes? What happens when no one is watching? Most people don't live their philosophy. They explain it. They wear it like a coat, taken off when the weather changes. But Stoicism was never meant to be worn. It was meant to be carried, like a burden, like a sword, like a fire in your bones. Epictetus didn't say, speak your values. He said, embody them. Let your posture speak. Let your silence roar. Let your choices preach louder than any sermon you could ever give. This isn't about ideas. This is about integrity. If your beliefs can't be found in your behavior, then they're just decoration, wallpaper for a crumbling soul. So the question is simple. Do you want to sound wise, or do you want to become someone worth following? Look around you. In every corner of the digital world, there are people shouting their ideologies, crafting personal brands out of borrowed wisdom, and collecting likes for quotes they haven't earned through suffering. They speak of self-discipline, but they can't rise before noon. They speak of resilience, but crumble under silence. They speak of stoicism, but only when it's convenient. We are living in an echo chamber of speech, where truth is applauded, not practiced, where people mistake eloquence for wisdom and verbosity for virtue. But Epictetus knew something deeper. That philosophy was not meant to decorate your profile. It was meant to be dragged through the battlefield of your life. Tested, cut, burned, until the words you spoke were indistinguishable from the man who spoke them. He didn't say talk about courage. He said live in a way that terrifies your cowardice. He didn't say define virtue. He said become so ruthlessly committed to it that even your enemies would call you consistent. Because to explain your philosophy is easy. To embody it is agony. Why? Because it forces you into the dark. It forces you to kill the versions of yourself that betray the truth, the lazy self, the fearful self, the performative self that lives for applause but not for meaning. And this is where the danger lies. In confusing talking about the light with walking through the fire. And they're not the same. Because when the weight of life crushes down on you, it's not your philosophy posts that will save you. It's your habits. It's your discipline. It's your ability to act with integrity when no one's around to congratulate you. In a world addicted to optics, you must become invisible to applause. Invisible only to your own conscience. That's the beginning of real power. Not the kind you broadcast, but the kind that bleeds through your decisions. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you could no longer speak your beliefs, only live them? Would anyone know what you stood for? Would you? Because in the end, the Stoic doesn't need to raise his voice. His life shouts for him. People want to talk about what they believe. They decorate themselves in words, loyalty, justice, virtue. They share quotes. They post reels. They say all the right things. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You are not what you say. You are what you do when it costs you something. Every decision is a declaration. Every delay in your discipline is a retreat. Every indulgence you justify is a quiet betrayal of your creed. So the question isn't, what do you believe? The real question is, what does your life prove you believe? Do your habits honor strength or comfort? Do your relationships reveal character or just convenience? Do your reactions in chaos align with your highest principles or your lowest fears? Because whether you admit it or not, you are preaching with your posture. You are teaching with your silence. And you are sculpting your soul with every microscopic choice you make. This is not abstract. It's not theoretical. This is where your values breathe. In the mundane, in the gritty, in the invisible repetitions of your day. That is your true belief system. You want to know what someone believes. Watch what they tolerate in themselves. Watch what they repeat when no one's watching. Watch what they do when they're angry, tired, afraid, or unseen. That is their true religion. That is the creed written not on their walls, but in their flesh. Epictetus was clear. Don't talk about virtue. Become it. Because philosophy that lives only in the mouth and never in the marrow is just noise. So here's the challenge. Take one value you claim to believe, just one, and trace it through your last 7 days. How often did you embody it under pressure? How often did you abandon it for convenience? Don't make excuses. Don't intellectualize. Own the gap between what you profess and what you practice. That gap is your battlefield. And that war is worth fighting. Because if you can shrink that distance, if your life can begin to mirror your creed, then you won't need to convince anyone of your integrity. They will feel it in your presence. They will see it in your restraint. They will trust it in your stillness. Words explain. Actions echo. Make your life the sermon you've been afraid to preach. There comes a moment in every serious life when the noise stops. No applause, no distractions, no clever justifications. Just you and your reflection. And that mirror. It doesn't care about your intentions. Doesn't care how good your heart feels. It reflects what you've become. Not in your imagination, but in behavior. Repetition, action. This is where integrity is born or exposed. Because philosophy is cheap when spoken. But lived philosophy, that costs. It costs comfort. It costs reputation. It costs a lazy part of your soul that wants to be praised without paying the price. You say you believe in discipline. The mirror asks, what did you do when the alarm went off at 5 a.m.? You say you believe in honesty? The mirror asks, did you lie to make yourself look better at work today? You say you value growth. Then why are you still repeating the same cycles you swore you'd outgrow last year? The mirror is not cruel. It is clarifying. It tells the truth you've been avoiding. You are either aligned or you're lying. Maybe not to others, but to yourself. That's the deeper wound. Not failure. Self-betrayal. We become strangers to our own reflection because we've built lives that perform virtue instead of becoming it. But there is another way. Face it. Flinch, then stay. Let the mirror break the fantasy. Let it show you the distance between who you are and who you could be. And instead of turning away, you turn inward. You make a vow, not to explain, not to impress, but to align, to close the gap. The man or woman of integrity doesn't need the crowd to approve. They don't need to shout their values from a rooftop. They simply live them so consistently, so powerfully, that the silence becomes sacred. Epictetus wasn't inviting you to write essays on ethics. He was demanding that you stand upright in the dark and not flinch when your soul calls your name. This is the mirror. You will meet it every morning. So the question is, will you keep performing your philosophy, or will you finally become it? There is a kind of strength that makes no sound. It doesn't shout. It doesn't signal. It simply is. Steady, disciplined, and almost invisible. You'll miss it if you're looking for fireworks. But if you've ever stood next to a person who lives what they believe, you feel it. You feel their gravity. Because real power, real virtue, doesn't need to speak. It just moves through the world like a shadow that shapes everything it touches. We live in an age obsessed with exposure. We don't just act, we perform. We don't just grow, we post about growing, and slowly, the soul rots beneath the performance. Epictetus wasn't warning you against philosophy. He was warning you against talking about it. He understood that the deepest transformations are hidden. The rewiring of your instincts. the battles fought in silence at 3 a.m., the moments you choose truth over comfort, even when no one is watching. Virtue, in its highest form, becomes ritual, not spectacle. It's in the choices no one sees, getting up when you don't feel like it, speaking softly when anger surges, returning cruelty with composure. You do these things not because someone's watching, but because someone inside you is watching. The discipline of the invisible is how you build a life that speaks, without noise. In today's world, silence can feel like weakness. You feel pressured to brand your growth, monetize your values, explain your pain like it's content. But understand this: what is sacred does not crave applause. What is truly yours needs no validation. Do you know how to sit still and let your life speak louder than your voice? Can you walk into a room and command it? Not with bravado, but with presence. Because here's the terrifying truth: the person you're becoming is not defined by what you say. It is etched into what you do when no one's looking. That's the Stoic code, not noise, not declaration. Discipline, presence, and the silence of a soul aligned with its highest order. So here's your challenge: in a world begging for show, be the one who quietly becomes. In a culture that rewards noise, be the one whose stillness has gravity. Because if your life speaks the truth, you'll never need to explain your philosophy. It will be felt. And if you're not embodying it, then what exactly are you building? You want to be something, but you don't want to become it. You want the crown, but not the weight. You want to be called disciplined, but you flinch at the repetition. You want to live your philosophy, but without bleeding for it. But let me tell you something: to embody your values is to carry fire. And fire, by nature, burns. People don't fail because they lack belief. They fail because they lack the discipline to translate belief into form. Ideas are beautiful. Discipline is brutal. And this is where most break. At the altar of consistency. It's not the passion that defines you. It's the practice. Not the philosophy you admire, but the one you repeat. A warrior of consistency doesn't fight once. He fights daily, quietly, without applause. No speeches, no banners. Just the rhythm of ritual, the friction of choice, the strain of restraint. Because the real test isn't found in grand moments. It's in the silent battles, when no one sees and you still choose to do what's right. To be gentle when anger is justified. To rise when comfort whispers rest. To stay honest when lying would serve your ego. That's not strategy. That's soul work. And every time you follow through, not because it feels good, but because it's true, you forge identity in fire. This is the secret the Stoics knew. The cost of embodiment is everything that is false in you. It burns away pretense. It melts the ego. And what's left is something sacred. When Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it," he wasn't being clever. He was issuing a war cry. He was saying, stop talking, start bleeding. Because to live what you believe, to embody it in your posture, your patterns, your presence, is the highest proof of philosophy. So here's your challenge. Become the kind of person whose habits preach louder than their words. Be a furnace, not a flag. Be a rhythm, not a reaction. Be the fire that never goes out, even when the world goes cold. You are being watched, not by the world, but by your own soul. And every action is a vote for who you will become. Will you carry the fire? Will you step into the rhythm of the warrior? Again and again, until the flame becomes you. Because this world doesn't need more words. It needs people who burn with what they say they believe. What does it mean to become the code? It means you stop preaching virtue because you've become it. It means your footsteps echo your beliefs. Your discipline is not on display, is the display. Because there comes a point, a spiritual threshold where you no longer ask, "What would a good man do?" You are the answer. This isn't performance. This isn't image. This is law, written on the bones. It's what Epictetus meant when he said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it, because explanation is noise. Embodiment is authority." There is a sacred transformation that happens when you carry your philosophy past the mind, into your habits, your posture, your tone of voice, into your silences, into your inner courtroom where you are both judge and witness. And the final test. It's not whether people agree with you, it's whether your soul respects you. If your conscience had a vote, it'll elect you again. We live in an age of proclamation and self-branding. But philosophy, real philosophy, is never loud. It's carried like a hidden torch beneath the armor. You don't need to shout it. You need to burn with it. To become the code means you've made peace with the weight of silence. You're no longer seeking praise because you're governed by something higher than applause. You're ruled by the unseen authority, your own soul. When the soul becomes law, discipline ceases to be a battle. You don't try to be consistent. You are consistency. You don't debate virtue. You radiate it. You don't need permission. Because you're no longer acting out a role, you've merged with it. You are the thing. But let me be clear. This isn't about perfection. This is about alignment. A life that is not fractured into masks, roles, and contradictions. When your values and your behavior lock into place. When what you say, what you do, and what you are become indistinguishable. That's not just power. That's peace. You've exercised the civil war within. You don't flinch anymore. You don't tremble when no one's watching, because you're no longer ruled by the external. You've become inner monarchy. So the final question is this. Will you speak about the fire, or become it? Will you post quotes about discipline, or let discipline sculpt your soul? Will you echo what others say, or will you embody what eternity respects? The code lives, or it dies, and it does so in you. So walk quietly, live like a warrior, and let your life speak the words your mouth no longer needs to say. You won't leave behind a book. You won't leave behind a thesis. You'll leave behind a trail of choices. Moments where you stood still when the world begged you to perform. Moments where you chose silence over applause. Moments where you embodied what others only quoted. This is your unwritten testament, not carved in stone, but etched in the bones of your days. Let them say nothing about you. Let them feel everything you stood for, because in the end, it was never about saying the philosophy. It was about being it.